Hello and welcome to the Intel Brief. Today is Thursday, the 9th of April. I am your host Daniel, and today we're going to talk about Iran has threatened new hostilities as Israel pounds Lebanon, Trump has criticized NATO over Iran in a meeting with Rutte, and the Taiwanese opposition leader has met with Chinese leaders. So firstly, following Israeli strikes in Lebanon that killed at least 182 people and wounded some 900 others, Iran has threatened to resume hostilities. The US, Israel, and Iran are disputing the extension of the ceasefire deal to Lebanon. A senior US official has said that Iran's 10-point plan was not the same set of conditions the White House had agreed to in order to pause the war. JD Vance added in a statement that if Iran wants to let negotiations fall apart over Lebanon, which has nothing to do with them, and which the United States never once said was part of the ceasefire, that's ultimately their choice. Meanwhile, Iran's parliamentary speaker appeared to threaten the ceasefire, posting on X that the workable basis on which to negotiate had already been violated, making further talks unreasonable. He has listed at least 3 alleged US violations of the truce plan: the continued attacks on Lebanon, a drone entering Iranian airspace, and the denial of the country's right to enrichment. So what? It seems almost certain that Israel doesn't want to stop its campaign in Lebanon to remove Hezbollah from the map completely. This is likely due to their national security demands, particularly surrounding their Iranian proxy groups on their border. And it's possible that this could ruin the ceasefire due to miscommunication between the 3 groups. It appears that the US doesn't really care what Israel is doing in Lebanon, and that Israel is going to continue their campaign. It's an interesting statement there from Vance, who looks like he's trying to push Iran away from supporting their proxies, basically trying to say that they have nothing to do with them and they should just leave them alone and let Israel do whatever it wants to do. So that's, an interesting way of going about it from Vance. And next, US President Donald Trump was absolutely disappointed during a meeting with NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte on Wednesday. The 2 leaders met at the White House to discuss the US-Israeli war against Iran, in which NATO allies did not actively participate. In a statement posted on Truth Social shortly after the meeting, he said, in all capital letters, NATO wasn't there when we needed them, and they won't be there if we need them again. Rutte, who is the former Dutch Prime Minister, has been dubbed the Trump Whisperer for his ability to flatter Trump, shared some of the details in an interview with CNN afterwards, in which he said this was very frank, very open discussion, but it also a discussion between 2 good friends. The meeting comes a day after the US had agreed their ceasefire with Iran. So what? I just don't know what to say here, and I've talked about this a lot, but I want to keep highlighting it as such a big issue and something we need to keep an eye on. As I said last night in a post, I think it's highly unlikely that Trump can quickly leave NATO, but he could attempt to ruin it on his way out the door. So he can't really just quickly leave NATO due to it needing congressional approval, something he's unlikely to get very quickly. But, he can come out and actively say that he's not going to participate in NATO. He's trying to withdraw all his troops from NATO countries, and that they would not uphold Article 5. This is, an absolute linchpin in NATO. So saying that he wouldn't participate would be very damaging to the alliance. But it's in my opinion, it's likely that Europe can hold out in the short term without US support. The biggest adversary to NATO is Russia, who's currently, tied up in their war in Ukraine and doesn't really have the manpower or resource to attack European countries alone. So I think it's unlikely they pose a significant threat in the near term. And lastly, the leader of Taiwan's KMT opposition party, Cheng Li-wun, was in China's eastern city of Nanjing on Wednesday in a visit heavy with historical symbolism. Seen as a promoter of closer ties with Beijing, he is the first KMT leader to visit China in a decade amid tensions over Taiwan's ruling Democratic Party, whose leadership Beijing doesn't recognize. Cheng was invited to China by President Xi Jinping in March, and accepting the invite, Cheng had said she hopes to meet with Xi, although a meeting has not officially been announced. So what? I think it's possible that this is an attempt at forming routine visits as part of the party that wants to reunify with China and try and get more support and become closer with China in that eventuality. But it's also possible that this comes from China's side as a reaction to recent hostilities and conflicts, and China watching how they've gone. Basically, uh, in the last few conflicts, the attacker has not gone very well, and it has not worked out very well for him, both in Russia and recently with the US and Iran. So it's possible that China's looking at these conflicts and thinking, maybe we don't really want to go militarily into Taiwan currently, and now they're looking for other ways they could go about getting Taiwan to reunify, which is what they've done for the past 40 years, which is the attempts for peaceful reunification through trying to woo political parties and try and get the people of Taiwan on side. So yeah, it's possible that's the way it's going. But if you want to learn more about China, go check out like Alcon. He's much more China-versed than I am. Anyway, that's been your Intel Brief. I've been your host, Daniel, and I'll see you again tomorrow. See you!